ADHD brain goes fast, and without having a way to slow it down, at least sometimes each day, it is going to be almost impossible to implement any strategy at all. You are not going to even listen to this video. You are going to click off it in the first 10 seconds. You are not going to read that book. And the most surefire way to help yourself with that is via a stimulant. It's not necessary to use a stimulant if you can do it through mindfulness and meditation, taking a step back, taking enough time to relax and really not think about anything. But the way the society works right now, you may not have the time and the mental clarity to use these tools, so stimulants can help. Okay, so the title might be a little bit confusing, but I assure you it will make sense in a moment. I'm making this video because some of the comments under my previous response to Professor Jordan Peterson made me feel like maybe my message was not taken exactly the way I intended it to be. And so let me tell you what questions will be answered if you keep watching this video, as far as I can answer them. Let's start with the quick responses. Number 1. Does Professor Peterson know what he's talking about? Of course he does. Absolutely. Number 2. If you implement his advice, is it going to transform your life for the better? Yes, it absolutely will. Number 3. If you're diagnosed ADHD, are you going to be successful in implementing this advice? Possibly not. Number 4. Is there a way to actually succeed in that implementation then? Yes, I believe so. And number 5. So if that is the case, what is the problem with his ADHD advice in the first place? Well, let's get into that. Welcome to Psyche Pete's channel. So first things first, I really want to still stand behind the facts presented in my previous video. That is not a question, but I want to also correct any misunderstanding that I might have caused by providing you with 3 reasons why Professor Peterson is very much correct. And one reason why this is all a little bit harder than it might have been presented in the video, in the lecture by him. And as far as I know, really, from personal experience and from my coaching experience, following this advice is going to be helpful. So let's start with number 1. And number 1 is emotional alignment. I brushed it off in my previous response because I thought I got it on lock. But in reality, I was not using my emotions at all. I was like a Vulcan from Star Trek, you know, the completely rational beings, only using logic and reason to motivate their actions. Alas, I am a human being, and this is not how we work, so we still do have emotions, and all these emotions that I was not using were still somewhere. And while Mr. Spock from the Starship Enterprise could probably keep his emotions in check forever, I really don't have that kind of luxury, and it was causing me all kinds of trouble. And so what's the action step for you? Maybe you feel the same way, maybe you feel like you're only motivated by reason, and that's the correct way to do it. You never feel intense anger, you never cry because you're sad, you also never feel very intense joy anymore. It's all just reason, you know, just this gray emotion all the way through. In that case, you may be suffering from the same thing that I was suffering from, which is emotional repression. Instead of actually aligning our emotions, we are not using them at all. This is not a problem that is usually covered on Google or on other videos. If you search for emotional repression, what you most likely find is just ways to control your emotions even more. And it is not really helpful for someone that try to purge themselves of all emotions, right? So I would really urge you, if you feel like this, try to relax a little bit, open up to your emotions. Because if you don't, they are just going to stay there and fester and rot, and nothing good can come out of it. And really, if you have been a Vulcan for some time, maybe you will find that it feels good, even though you may feel like it's a bad idea. I don't think you will spiral out of control if you have been Mr. Spock for the past few years. If, however, you have the opposite problem, like you are using your emotions quite well, but you may have a little bit of problem keeping them in check, well, Well, there's a range of advice that you can find online that is not really an issue that I will address here, but you have my sympathies and I believe that you can definitely work with that as well. The possibility I can think of is that you feel only certain emotions, mostly just sadness or frustration. In that case, I think it is very similar to number one, and it was happening to me as well. No further repression of these negative emotions is going to help you. What you need to do is actually release them. And in doing so, you might release the other positive emotions as well. Some joy, some excitement, maybe some anger when it is appropriate. So relax, let go of your reins a little bit, and you might find that you start to feel your emotions again, and then you can actually start the process of emotionally aligning yourself towards the direction that you really want to go in. Number 2, temperamental variance. So, is ADHD just a temperamental variance as was described in the video, or is it something more? Well, the answer is, who cares? It doesn't really matter if it's temperamental variance, it's just semantics. Really what ADHD is at its core, it's not depression, it's not anxiety, it's not lack of motivation, it's not low energy. What it is your brain going really, really fast. If that is not utilized properly, well, that's a big force that can cause you to spiral down a negative emotional, well, spiral, right? So with all of this anxiety and depression and low motivation, what is it if it's not ADHD? Well, it is ADHD, but it's not the core of ADHD. It's like the snowball that you throw off a mountain that causes an avalanche. It's not really logical to say that the snowball is the avalanche, but it can be the cause of the avalanche. If you manage to remove the negative things that the avalanche is causing, then you can work with only the snowball again. And the snowball can actually be used for fun as well. You can throw it at your friends. You don't really need it to cause an avalanche if you know what to do with it. Very slight tangent, I still don't think that it's correct to call ADHD a temperamental variance in the current discourse, because to me, like on the imaginary scale of 100% creativity, you would still be in control of it. If you are not in control and the inspiration is so intrusive that you really have to act on it, I would say that's beyond the scope of temperamental variance, but that really doesn't matter, it was just a tangent. Let's go to number 3, which is disciplining yourself over the course of years. Years is the operative word here. We so often feel like if we don't get disciplined overnight, something terrible is going to happen. We are flawed in some way. It is really important to focus on that part of Professor Peterson's message. It takes a long time. It's not going to take a week, it's not going to take a month. It can take literally years. But the good news is, you don't need to be 100% disciplined to start getting results. Many people live their life completely successfully and happy and joyfully with like 10% of the maximum discipline, right? So if you want to be disciplined, you don't have to push to get to the 100% mark, and you don't have to sacrifice everything to be there. You definitely don't need to sacrifice your well-being, your mental health, and get depressed because you are just so much wanting to be disciplined finally. It can take time, and that is okay. That is what I believe that Professor Peterson meant. The only problem that you can have is when you start to tell yourself, oh, I'm just a failure because I'm still not disciplined. That is actually the first step in the direction of a cliff. You don't really want to go there. It's okay, you are who you are. You can use whatever tools you may find helpful. You can use sticky notes, you can use timers, you can use a planner, you can use an app, you can hire a coach, you can hire an assistant. It's all okay. If you start thinking, or you probably are already thinking that right now, that I'm wrong because I need these tools, I'm already somehow bad because of that. That is the road towards your own destruction. You are who you are, and it's absolutely okay. You can use these tools and be successful. And if you are successful, that is all that matters. No one will ask you if you had an assistant, if you had a sticky note on your computer, or if you used a timer every 30 minutes. That does not matter. and it's okay. So I mean it. Go work on your discipline, but don't judge yourself if you don't succeed immediately. It's not only unhelpful, but it's also impossible standard to meet. Even if you didn't have ADHD, it's going to take some time. Okay, so now I hope that I answered the basic questions of why Professor Peterson's advice is actually good and you can trust it. So let's now make a 180 on that and completely destroy it by saying why it all doesn't work. I'm kidding, of course. It does work, and everything that I said previously applies. But yeah, there is one reason that Professor Peterson is overlooking, and it's really not his fault. He is underestimating the intensity of the core symptom. ADHD brain goes fast, like really fast. And without having a way to slow it down, at least sometimes each day, it is going to be almost impossible to implement any strategy at all. You are not going to even listen to this video. You are going to click off it in the first 10 seconds. You are not going to read that book. You're not going to get that coach. You're not going to get that assistant. And the most surefire way to help yourself with that is via a stimulant. It's not necessary to use a stimulant if you can do it through mindfulness and meditation, taking a step back, taking enough time to relax and really not think about anything. But the way the society works right now, you may not have the time and the mental clarity to use these tools, so stimulants can help. But now it's extremely important to not understand stimulants as the solution for ADHD. It's mentioned in the mainstream media about ADHD, but I don't think that it's mentioned enough. Like, the stimulant is going to help you calm down your mind. What does it mean? What does ADHD actually do? Well, your brain goes really fast. So why are you getting all these negative emotions? Why are you getting depressed if it's just making your brain go fast? Well, the secret is that ADHD is shortcutting you towards your destination. What takes other people 10, 15, 20 years to get to in their midlife crisis, you can get through in 3 months. Now, is this a disorder or a blessing? Well, who cares? It doesn't really matter. It's the fact. You are shortcutting your way to where your destination leads. Maybe you are catastrophizing a little bit, but you know where you are and you know where you want to be. And you feel much stronger about it than the regular person that can just, take it and continue on that way until they really burn out over the course of a few years. So if you just slow your mind and keep going in the same direction, you are just going to get there a bit later. So slowing your mind is going to allow you to start implementing the tools, to find that vision that really resonates with you, to find what you want to do, to find something that you can emotionally align yourself towards. And once you have it, you can still take the stimulants. Maybe you will be able to just use some mindfulness. It works for me right now. But you may not even need to do anything, because you can just unleash your full creative energy towards that direction that you really want to go in. Because what happens if you don't have all these negative emotions and mindset and you are not going in this direction is that you're just going to be a hyperactively super positive, joyful person. You may be too intense for your friends, you may be too intense for your boring job, but you will just be happy. So where does all this negativity come from? Well, it comes from the fact that you are going in the wrong direction and your hyper fast mind is reminding you of that much more than other people. So in closing, Professor Peterson is very much right, and he is wrong about one thing, about the intensity of the core symptom. And can we really blame him? Like, the thought intensity, is that a concept that someone can imagine? It's like describing color to someone who can't see. So let's not be too harsh and rather focus on the previously mentioned reasons, because these are really solid advice. And if you stop thinking about yourself as somehow flawed, it can actually be the only one thing that you need to make the changes. In my case, it was actually just realizing that, oh, well, I can do what I want to do. And it's not going to be bad. I can stop putting myself down all the time, and maybe I'm smart enough and actually I am organized enough to amount to something. And if I'm not, I'm just going to hire an assistant or whatever. And with that said, if you like the video, please like below as well. Maybe comment if you have any questions or something to add. I will be very happy to respond. Subscribe if you want to learn more about self-development and ADHD. And I'll see you next time. Thank you very much for watching. This is Speed, signing out.